Simone Signore felt something was wrong immediately, as soon as she noticed the special look of Marilyn Monroe with which she clung to Yves. Simone and her husband Yves Montand came to America quite recently to shoot a film with the telling title Let's Make Love, in which between the characters of the Parisian nightingale and the Hollywood sex icons, Marilyn had to have a passionate affair and felt a little lost in a foreign country. Well, Simone felt like she was in a bad dream, watching a blonde predator launch her claws into her new victim Willow, who was more and more succumbing to the charm of the magnificent Marilyn. Simone's little perfect world, completely revolving around Montana, was collapsing right before her eyes, and there was nothing she could do. By the time they met, Simone Signore was already quite a famous French actress, recognized by critics. Not very beautiful, but incredibly charming and truly talented. She managed to get married, give birth to a daughter, and believed that her life had everything she needed. Yves Montand was no less famous, but more for his songs and because of a high-profile affair with Edith Piaf herself, who molded an elegant conqueror of women's hearts from an awkward guy. They were 30 years old. We were introduced to each other at the Golden Dove, and the very next day we had lunch together. At dessert, taking her hand, I whispered, "What thin wrists you have." And since then we have not parted, wrote Yves Montand in his book of memoirs. He immediately demanded that someone move in with him. "Either you leave now or you won't see me anymore. All this is for nothing, and there's no need to call." She was initially doubtful, but the sudden overwhelming love, which she no longer expected, left her no choice. 2 days later, she and her daughter Catherine, whom Yves later adopted, unpacked things in his apartment. Simone would later write in her memoirs that a lightning strike flashed. She followed Montand to his concert the next day, leaving her husband and a recently born child. She couldn't help herself. She followed him like a blind man following a guide dog. 2 years later, they got married, and Simone left the career of an actress, which she dreamed of and which began to take shape so well and so early. Yves Montand was jealous of her partners, her success, and her ex-husband. Simone followed him around like a babysitter, and during the intermission of his concerts, she knitted scarves and sweaters with knitting needles. Montand was constantly traveling with concerts, and Simone could not imagine life without him. So she gave up her career, she stopped acting and acting in the theater in order to support him behind the scenes and cook him dinners. She was condemned by all her friends and acquaintances. She was too talented to stay at home. But one day someone realized that she could lose her beloved husband just because of her care. He was cramming a script, she was knitting a scarf next to him, and suddenly Yves, with unexpected irritation, asked what she was doing. "I'm knitting. That's why I'm not filming, to be with you, always." "Yes, I don't see any offers to act," the irascible singer blurted out. Simone silently put down her knitting, went to the phone and dialed her agent's number under Yves' astonished gaze. He did not know that she had been offered a role in a very promising film. "Giles, I agree to play that role. Yes, I will sign the contract tomorrow." She hung up the phone and, looking at the dumbfounded Montana, realized that she had just saved both her career and her marriage. Over time, the success of Simone Signore and Yves Montand equaled. She was well liked by critics, and he was well liked by the admiring audience who came to his concerts. Starting acting again, she became one of the few French artists who received the coveted Oscar and then the Grammy Award. In addition, Simone Signore has been awarded the title of the Best Artist of the Year in France more than once. She has received awards in the USA, Great Britain, Japan, and Italy. And the fatal story began with a simple phone call. "Is this Yves Montand? Would you like to star with Marilyn Monroe?" He instantly agreed, and a week later he, Simone, and schoolgirl Catherine flew across the ocean, straight to Los Angeles, to the famous Dream Factory. Monroe fell for Yves right away at the very first meeting. When she and Simone left for the hotel, Marilyn admiringly told her friend, "He's very sexy, and I love his voice so much, and Simone is very ugly." I swear he married her because of her career. She immediately began to seduce Montana, but either Simone or Monroe's husband Henry were always there, so their relationship was limited to sexual vibes on set. The Signore saw everything, but what could she do? And so the X hour came. Simone had to go to Europe for filming, and Henry flew to New York. Montand and Marilyn were left alone. Montand felt awkward. He was embarrassed by his English, his fate as a page with the highest-grossing actress in Hollywood. There was such a sexy, young, and approachable woman next to him. "This Marilyn is standing in front of my eyes," he wrote, in plaid slacks, in a blouse with a playfully open collar, with eyes of inexplicable blue. Their romance was stormy and fast. The Hollywood beauty did not want to be content with the leftovers from Simone's table and demanded that Yves break up with his wife. He just laughed in response, and when their relationship got out of control, he decided to break up with Monroe. During their last conversation in the car, he explains to Monroe that the idea of leaving Simone is ridiculous. Marilyn is shocked, and then there's the second stab in the back from the Frenchwoman. Just at the same time, Simone won the Oscar, which the blonde has always dreamed of. She has both Oscar and Eve. She's smart. She's got everything. And I. The dream of all men in the world was beating in hysterics. And then Yves had an explanation with Simone. He confessed everything to her, and anyway, the whole world was already aware. "It was terrible," he recalled. Then everything calmed down, but only outwardly. I could see that she was broken, deeply saddened by the knowledge that the 10 amazing years that we had lived together had been overshadowed. I was so remorseful. And yet it was wonderful, he would say years later, and it was doomed. Never, not for a single moment, did I have the idea of ending my relationship with my wife, but if she, Simone, had slammed the door, I would have died. Having won the main battle for love, Simone achieved her goal. Until her death, 27 years old, they were together, and when Montand was asked what had failed in his life, he replied without hesitation, "I dreamed of dying before Simone." To this day, the French consider Simone and Yves to be the perfect couple of all time, and even that episode with Marilyn Monroe means to them that French charm was able to defeat Hollywood sex appeal. There is a place in Paris where lovers come and swear allegiance to each other. This is the grave of Montand and Signore on the Père Lachaise. Here, time has reconciled two bright personalities, and the bitterness of resentment disappeared into eternity.